I got really worried because I put these pants on because I just wanted to be comfortable, and they're like slidey, and I was like, oh no, will my goblin perch hold me, or am I gonna fall?
In carrying my tater tot this winter, their like little jacket they wear, which is super thin, because babies don't wear jackets in cars anymore. It's not safe.
Yeah, you can't buckle their car seat, right?
Right. So this is like the lightest jacket that I can put on them. It is very slippery, and then when I'm wearing my slippery jacket, I can just feel their little body going. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
Good.
And then I can feel like little hands like death gripping me, like you see the pictures of like the baby gorillas, like,
oh no,
like holding dear life for their mothers when the mothers are like walking along. And I'm like, oh, I understand now.
I just imagine like you turning and the tater tot is gone, but there's like thigh high snow, and there's just like a little shape where they fell in, and you just hear, good, mama.
They did startle me today. I heard the bathroom door open when I was taking a shower. I had just finished. I went to open like the curtain dramatically because I wasn't sure who, and I heard like little pitter patter feet, and then I looked. I don't know why I looked towards the door, and there was nobody there, and then I looked down in front of me, and I went, ah!
And it was Chucky. I have been awaiting this momentous occasion, but I got here today, and Beth said, do you want to give Miss Britta a hug? And the tater tot willingly came within a foot of me and just sort of awkwardly leaned against my leg, and I was like, I'll take it. It's a win. I will take it. I was so mad that like other people have gotten hugs from them and I did not, and I see them more often, so we're starting today with a win. I'm taking a W.
Oh, I guess let's start officially. Hello. Welcome to the Lake Erie Library. I am Beth.
I'm Britta, I think.
And today we are discussing Christmas horror movies. I was just going to say, as a small aside, I was just talking to a library patron, and they're like, yeah, I'm switching from horror movies to Christmas movies. And I said, what about Christmas horror movies?
¿Por qué no los dos?
And then I realized, from, when we record this and the order of stuff, like, as much as I don't read Christmas spooky books, I do watch Christmas horror movies, and there is a much larger subset of those.
There's so many Christmas horror movies.
And I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense, though. There's a lot of, like, kind of spooky elements. We've talked about this. There's a lot of, like, spooky elements to Christmas and just, like, the pagan origins and stuff of Christmas. Like, the amalgamation of Christianity is gonna commandeer Yule. It's fine. But yeah, like, in Europe, they have, like, Krampus. They have the Christmas witch. They have, like, so many different legends and lore, and so even they have a Christmas spider. Like, I
have a trauma thing with the Christmas spider.
Oh no.
Like, you brought it up, and I started to hear, like, the Kill Bill sirens, like the Ironside song in my head. And I was like, oh no, don't go to the bad place. Come back.
I just told Buddy, the elf coworker, that we should get a Christmas spider for the Christmas tree.
It's okay. I just might, like, Danny Torrance, like, shake if I stare at it, because I'm, like, having some PTSD.
I saw some really pretty ones on Instagram. Like, they were heavily advertising. They're like, do you like shiny, spooky things for the holidays? I'm like, yes. You might like this.
Yeah, I mean, I do love spiders. I just, like, I don't mean to be Phoebe Cates right now, but I'm going to be Phoebe Cates right now, and this will all make sense in a little bit. But when I was 10, we're Catholic. I've mentioned that before, and we're Polish. So, like, we celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve, and then, like, we keep our Christmas tree up into January because you leave it up until after the Feast of the Epiphany, when, like, wise men made it to meet little baby Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had our Christmas tree up still, and I was like laying on the floor in the living room watching Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I vividly remember it was the Tia and Tamara Mowry one. And my dad was sitting in his easy chair behind me, and it was like right next to the Christmas tree, and he started making these like weird noises, and I turned around and he was like moaning and like doing Frankenstein arms, and I thought he was like being funny because we had a Christmas spider ornament on our Christmas tree that my cousin had given us. And then I very quickly realized he wasn't joking around and that something was like horribly wrong. And yelled for my mom, and then had to go call 911 because he was having a grand mal seizure. And that is how we found out that my dad had an inoperable brain tumor. Merry Christmas. This is why, like, people are like, wow, Britta, that's so lame that you don't like Christmas. But I have all of these, like, traumatic things tied with it.
Yes.
That I'm like, leave me alone. I'm allowed to hate it.
Yes, you are allowed to hate it. I'm sorry. I don't think I knew the Christmas spider connection, so I apologize.
No, you do, and so does everyone else. This parasocial relationship's getting really uncomfortable for some people.
I don't have any traumatic Christmas stories right now, but you know, life is still happening. I'm sure I have room for those.
Yeah, I hope not.
I hope
not. I hope you never have a traumatic Christmas thing.
But we are going to talk about Christmas horror. As we both said, there are a lot of like horrific elements to Christmas. It gets darker earlier.
There's always that like possibility of being trapped somewhere because of a snowstorm.
Yep. And you know, especially from the modern slasher era, like we love the idea of evil Santa Claus. I really think we came up with evil Santa Claus because Krampus wasn't prevalent until maybe the past decade, I would say, in American culture. Because we're all so ignorant and just like geographically, like we don't care about the rest of the world. US is the best. But we have a lot of slasher movies with people dressing up like Santa and doing terrible things.
Well, I think that's kind of like falls under the same thing as like clowns, where like clowns are meant to be like joyful, and so you're expecting one thing, but then you get something horrifically the opposite. So like, oh, Santa's supposed to be safe, like he watches you when you're a kid, and like, you know, is you tell him what you want and he brings you nice presents, so then when he like shanks you, it's a really bad surprise.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that's a good kind of introduction to Christmas horror. Like, I will just briefly honorably mention Christmas Carol. We've already dived into the actual story of A Christmas Carol in a different episode, which
you'll listen to it next week.
Yes. So I'm not going to get into that, but there's ghosts in that. There's death in that. Like, I feel like it has all the horror elements that you were expecting. But that's not I'm not going to talk about that today because we go into greater depth already. So got other stuff up my sleeve. I do want to bring up my personal childhood favorite, and one that everybody knows and has seen and is like now embraced. But, you know, as a kid, I feel like I'm one of the OG kids that was like, yes, this is my personality. That is going to be, of course, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, I don't feel like I need to bring up like the plot so much. It's on Freeform. Actually, I think they put it on during Halloween and not Christmas, but I don't know. Sometimes they get a little loosey-goosey with stuff.
I think for the most part, I think it's more like on repeat during the like 31 days of Halloween that they do. And I guess that is because it primarily takes place in Halloween Town, so it does look more Halloween,
yes,
even though it does have Christmas aspects to it.
I mean, the whole plot is central to Christmas, and I like to argue because people are always like, "It's a Halloween movie." No, it's a Christmas movie. I'm like, it doesn't matter. But I
watch it in November and split the difference.
I say watch it in November because it literally takes place from Halloween night until the day of Halloween, over the course of November into Christmas. So, of course, aesthetically, like, man, this movie, like, unprecedented for me as a Disney kid growing up watching Disney movies. And then all of a sudden there's this movie where, like, in literally the first 2 minutes of the Halloween song, you see like little skeletons literally being hanged on a tree, and like something like fingers like snakes and spiders in my hair crawling under the bed, and a clown with a tearaway face.
I was just gonna say, I am the clown with the tearaway face.
All very like, holy crap. And then I vividly remember the commercial coming on as a kid being advertised where it's like, what did you get in your sack, Billy? Or your present, Billy? And the kid holds up his shrunken head and the parents like scream. Vividly remember. And this was back in the day we are going to age ourselves as aging.
What else is new?
Yeah, was aging millennials. But this was back in the day, like they would show commercials and trailers for like, it felt like a solid year before the movie like came out. So I definitely remember, we didn't buy it, but I definitely remember renting it multiple times from our local drugstore when they used to rent VHS tapes. It wasn't until like high school for me that it like started to become like Disney finally, it wasn't released as a Disney movie, it was released as Touchstone Pictures, which was owned by Disney, but they like didn't want to associate because like, it's too spooky. But again, it was made in 1993, so it's having an anniversary this year. It was released in October, which does again strengthen that it is a Halloween movie. But the plot of it is you have Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, who loves Halloween, does it up every year for Halloween, but he just feels like something's missing in his life, and he has like a mini existential crisis. Man, we've all been there. So he explores with his dog Zero. He explores his ghost dog Zero. He explores this like further out from Halloween Town, this like weird amalgam of trees, and each tree has like a holiday shape on it, and the one that catches his eye is a Christmas tree. So he opens the door and he falls into another holiday town, Christmas Town, and he says my tater tots favorite thing, which is, what's this? And he kind of gets to enjoy the magic of Christmas, and he wants to essentially take that and have Halloween Town essentially do Christmas. And it doesn't go well, hence The Nightmare Before Christmas. And this story is based off of a poem that Tim Burton wrote. It just had Santa, Jack Skellington, and Zero in it, and then they added all the other characters for it. Danny Elfman does the music. Chris Sarandon does the voice of Jack Skellington. I met him. I was very, like, starstruck, of course. He was going to sing, but he couldn't hit the notes. So then Danny Elfman did it, and I was like, honestly, like, good choice. And then Catherine O'Hara, of course, does the voice of Sally. It is Catherine O'Hara singing on the movie, and it's stop motion animation, so that alone should be impressive. And Tim Burton has come out to say, since it has been such a cultural phenomena that really took off in kind of the latter half of its life, that he doesn't want a sequel to it, which is
goodness. Yes,
which is good. I think that's probably the best part. But the nice part of that movie is it's a movie that has a lot of horror elements. That's kind of it's a nice kid introduction to kind of horror. And let me tell you, as I said, it alternated something in my brain where I was just like, wait, I can like spooky things and Christmas at the same, like I can like both of those things. Yes. Sign me up.
The other day, other male coworker who is going to start getting mad that he doesn't have a nickname. Coworker Scissorhands. And I were talking about our Santa photos that I took at the library. And he had seen the ones you had shared of your tater tot. And he was like,
which are glorious, by the way.
He was like, I thought she went to like some professional place to have them taken. I didn't realize that was at the library. I was like, yeah, it was all me. Like, kudos to me. Praise me. And we kind of had this little, like for legal reasons, not a real, fantasy conversation. Jokes, NSA agents. But we were like, man, we gotta like kidnap that Santa and start our own like photography situation here and make some extra money. And all I could think was like the song about kidnapping.
Kidnap the Santa Claus. Again, yeah. Disney, do not sue
That's
us.
why I didn't sing it, because I was like, I don't want to sing more than like what you're allowed to before you hit copyright infringement. So that's all I could think about. So I was thinking about that movie the other day.
Yeah, they, like Santa Claus is kidnapped in that movie. You know, the Sally, who is Jack's friend / love interest, she's a rag doll, so she literally takes her body apart in order to, and she like kind of commits suicide, but not really, because she's a rag doll. She jumps out of like a 2-story window, and like her body just like kind of goes and falls apart. I hope you get to keep that noise in there. And then she's like, her one disembodied hand is like coming and like, here, help me sew this one. So there's just a lot of horror elements to it, where, as I said, as a kid, it just really blew my mind that like these things are allowed to kind of coexist together. Because when you watch any other kind of kids movie or like Disney movie as a kid, like, you know, the Wicked Witch or Maleficent are evil and they're bad and they're spooky, but like you're not supposed to like them as characters because they're bad. This was the first time that you have like a spooky character that is the hero. You're rooting for Jack to succeed. And then, you know, when he realizes that you shouldn't culturally appropriate things, he still tries to make amends, which is a good lesson for people to learn. So that's my soapbox. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. I am lightly a Nightmare Before Christmas girly. That's not my whole personality, but like that was my gateway. That was my gateway movie for a life of spookiness.
The first movie I'm going to talk about is from 2007, and it is P2.
Oh.
Have you seen
this? I have
this?
not seen P2.
So it is P2 as in like parking second floor.
Okay.
The majority of the movie does take place in a parking garage.
I think I've seen, I don't know, some sort of listicle on TV for like, this is a movie you need to watch. And I was like, okay. And then I forgot about it.
Yeah. So it is the story of Angela, played by Rachel Nichols, who is working late on Christmas Eve. And when she finally decides to leave, she goes down to the parking garage to get her car, but it won't start. So she goes to the garage's security guard, Thomas, played by Wes Bentley, who offers to help her. And he he's really awkward, and he kind of casually invites her to dinner, but she refuses. She is supposed to like go meet with her family. It's Christmas Eve. And Thomas knocks her out.
Wes Bentley, the American Beauty guy?
Yes.
With the
dark hair, light eyes.
The bag? Okay. I just had to make sure. I'm trying to picture like, oh yes, I find him attractive. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, he was like a super good looking guy, and he was in like everything in the early 2000s. So probably same person that you're thinking of. He knocks her out, and when she wakes up, she is in his office, chained to a chair, in different clothes.
Good God.
And she has to fight for her life to get out of the garage. So it is very cat and mouse. There's like this whole weird subplot involving like a guy she works with that is like kind of ick. I will like trigger warn you that there is animal death in this. There is like a dog involved.
Oh.
And it is like very much a cat and mouse thing, where it's like you keep thinking like, yes, this is it, she's finally gonna get out, and then like something thwarts her again. And there is, if you have any kind of fear of elevators, there is an elevator scene that is pretty traumatic in this, but overall it's pretty good. It keeps a pretty steady pace. Like, it doesn't take long to actually get into the horror elements of it, and it does have a satisfying ending, in my opinion.
Makes you feel great about being a woman in a parking lot, right?
I mean, I am always scared of parking garages anyway. Like, yes, because I'm afraid I'm going to get murdered, but because like the last time I parked in a parking garage for like a show I was in at a theater that I was supposed to get free parking for, the gates wouldn't open to let me out, and I thought I was just gonna have to stay in the parking garage forever. Like, I just lived there now, so yeah. I would rather surface level parking lot.
If I have to park in a parking garage, I either want to park at the very tippy top where I'm like exposed to the elements, because I'm at the very tippy top, or
that's such a long way to have to go to get out, though, if someone's trying to kill you, Beth.
That's true.
That's so true. Many ramps to run down.
That's true. Or I guess the lowest level towards the entrance. Anything after that, especially, I just feel like hospital parking garages are the scariest because they just like, let's jam pack people in here.
I hate trying to back out in a parking garage too, because people come like whipping around corners. Yeah.
You're like, okay, Marge, I know you want to go visit your daughter because she's in labor right now, but like, chill out.
Like, not even like at the hospital, like the one, you have to park in parking garages at the one like outdoor shopping center that's pretty close to where we live, and I hate it because every time there's somebody doing like 80 around a corner in there. Like, I'm sorry, you don't need to go that fast to get to Trader Joe's. Like, it's still gonna be here in 15 minutes.
Yeah. So that sounds like I want to watch it, but obviously we'll circle back in a year. We'll see what happens by next year. So I'm going to hit us with a movie that I would say helped really start the slasher genre. So between that, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and cemented with Halloween, you have the slasher as we know it. And the movie I'm going to be discussing is Black Christmas, originally titled Silent Night, Evil Night, and retitled Stranger in the House on television screenings. And it's a Canadian slasher film produced and directed by Bob Clark. Bob Clark, for those of you who don't know, made another movie that has an Ohio connection. That would be A Christmas Story. You guys love Ralphie? You love all the kind of weird horror elements in that movie? Think Bob Clark. As I said, has an Ohio connection because it was obviously filmed in Cleveland. There's a museum there you can go visit, right? You can still visit that?
Yes. So there's just some controversy over this because the guy who owned the house was selling it, and like everyone wanted to keep it open to the public. Like, there's a huge like race that happens every year that used to be in conjunction with it, and like one of the cast members was like, dude, sell it to me. And like there was like on the news, the two of them like screaming at each other in the middle of the street. And they just recently announced that one of the people who has worked at the museum for a long time is actually the new owner. They sold it to him, so he is going to keep it open as a museum for people to visit.
Well, that's cool. I did not know that. But anyways, back to Bob Clark. So before A Christmas Story, he directed A Black Christmas. This movie's got Margot Kidder in it, Olivia Hussey, Keir Dullea, Andrea Martin. Sorry if I butcher anybody's names, but this was kind of this was a novel movie at the time. But it's about a group of sorority sisters who receive threatening phone calls and are eventually stalked and murdered by a deranged killer during the Christmas season. It's got a really iconic like poster of like somebody strapped in a chair with a bag around their head and like all these Christmas things. But this movie, I personally enjoyed it. I know there's been remakes. I haven't watched any of the remakes because I have a hard time with remakes because I'm just like, is it going to be as good as the original? I don't know that. So I haven't watched any of them. So I can't say if they're good.
I've watched both of the remakes.
Have you seen the original?
I have seen the original. I saw the 2006 remake first.
Okay.
Because
Black Xmas.
My roommate, I don't have a nickname for him. I don't think he's ever gonna listen to this, but if he does, like, hi Kyle. Kyle is like super into horror movies. He goes to all the conventions everywhere. I've sent you pictures that he has like met people that were both super jealous that he's met them before. And we were talking about the remake, and I own the DVD, but it's like a used Blockbuster copy. So it's the blue Blockbuster DVD with like Black Xmas and white on it. But Kyle was like, well, if you watch that, like, you need to watch the original. So I think we rented it from Netflix when they still mailed out CD or DVDs.
I think I still have one of those.
I do too.
I never returned it.
I thought I lost it. Like, I thought it never came to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the same apartment. It was, oh my God, it's a terrible movie. I don't even know if I want to admit what it was.
I don't remember which one mine
I
was.
thought that it never arrived because I never saw the little mailer, but our building was notorious for, like, stuff getting stuck in the wrong mailbox and then people not, like, telling you, and they just would, like, throw it in a corner, and then a year later you'd find your mail. And so I was like, Netflix, I never got this. Don't fine me for not returning it. And so they took it off my account and sent me a new copy, and then I watched it and returned it. And then I found it, and now I still have it because I was too embarrassed. And, like, now they don't even mail DVDs anymore. I don't think. It was Prince of Persia starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It wasn't even a good movie. So we watched the original, and then my main impetus for watching the 2006 remake was that it had, I mean, I love Michelle Trachtenberg, and she's in it.
Right.
Harriet the Spy, that's my girl. Dawn, Buffy's little sister. But it also had Katie Cassidy in it, who I had this, like, visceral hatred for, and I don't know why. Like, I don't feel it anymore, but for a significant part of my life, like, I would see her in something and I wanted to, like, punch a puppy or a baby, like, looking at her.
Wow.
Like, I hated her. And so I was like, I'm going to watch this movie because I want to see her get murdered. And the same thing happened with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, because she was in that as well. And I was like, yes, kill her. I hate her. So that was my main takeaway from the remake. And then I also saw the most recent remake.
I have that recorded on
it's
my
all
DVR.
right. It definitely, I mean, it feels very different from the other two, and that is, like, some story elements make it feel different, but also I think it is just a sign of the times that, like, you could not make it like the original or the 2006 remake and have people want to pay money to see it, because that's just not what, like, horror audiences are paying for nowadays.
And the 1974 one is a little bit of a slow burn. Like, it starts with, like, you see somebody climb in a window into the attic of this, like, sorority house that is getting ready to kind of depart for, like, Christmas vacation, and they're having a party. And then as soon as they're having the party, like, as soon as it cuts from the guy getting into the building, into the house, the phone rings, and the actual telephone, like a rotary, like, phone for the entire sorority house, because this was before cell phones. It rings, and one of them takes the phone call. I believe it's Margot Kidder, and there's, like, an obscene phone call. It sounds, they call him the moaner. He's making some really, like, gross noises on the phone, and, you know, she's really cheeky about it. Then the sorority members listen until the person threatens to, like, kill them. When that happens, like, after that, one of them goes to leave while she gets, like, picked off. So people start getting picked off kind of one by one. I just feel like in general, this is, like, just a well done, kind of elevated, you know, precursor to slashers. It's a bit of a slow burn. You're not really sure who the slasher is. And as the girls get picked off one by one, Margot Kidder's kind of the last one there. There is a whole subplot with her and her college boyfriend. And she is pregnant, and you find out that she wants to get an abortion. So, like, to me, for something that was filmed in 1974, this is extremely progressive for the times. And he is, like, so angry in the film, which, you know, you as the audience are like, oh, he's obviously, like, the killer. Like, they're setting you up for that.
They do that a little bit in the newest one as well, but it's not like an abortion story. It is, because it is, like, very topical. It is a, like, one of the characters was raped by another college student, and the college is, like, refusing to acknowledge it. And so that is, like, how they kind of equated it in this era.
Okay. But then I think what another like fun thing about this movie, but it's not fun, but like you get to the end, you're rooting for like the final girl, and you know they're trying to trace like the phone calls and stuff like that, and it's like the last twist of this movie is so good. You've heard of the trope, like the calls coming from inside the house, and I'm not really spoiling anything too much, but because you know that somebody entered in the house at the beginning, but this doesn't have like a super happy ending at all. And like I said, it's a very good and I think well done kind of precursor to slasher movies. So if you're looking for OG slasher content, this would be the movie I would recommend to check out.
And if you're feeling really ambitious, you could just do a movie night and knock out all 3. I feel like it is.
Do they have different? The other 2 have different endings or same ending?
Same-ish, and then very wildly different.
Okay.
I will say that also because we do a lot of pop culture references, and one of my favorite things is like, oh, you know this person from this thing and this thing and this thing. Cary Elves is in the newest one, and he's not a nice man in it.
Oh, no.
He's not a good character. So Wesley from Princess Bride is in it.
I just feel like after Princess Bride, he just made like a very big effort to be in movies that you would not like expect him to be in, like Saw. And then you're just like, no, you're Robin Hood. Why are you being a terrible human?
I'll always love him. He did like a recurring character on Psych too, where he's like an art thief, like a renowned worldwide art thief that they keep running into and sometimes assisting by accident.
I did see him in that Netflix romance movie with Brooke Shields. I
didn't watch that. I couldn't handle it.
He was great.
I would do anything for Cary Elves, but I won't watch that.
It was atmospheric, at least. It was very pretty.
He did an amazing, during the COVID shutdown, he organized a fundraiser and got 99.9% of the surviving cast of The Princess Bride back to do a full script reading via Zoom as a fundraiser. And like, you know, obviously like Peter Falk wasn't there because he's passed away, but Rob Reiner read the grandpa, and then Fred Savage was not involved, which at the time I thought maybe it was a scheduling thing, but then I found out that he's been in trouble lately, so I think maybe it was just that they didn't want to associate him with it. But the kid Finn Wolfhard read Fred Savage's character, and then they found there was an actor. I can't remember if he's like there's a personality. I don't know if he's like an actor. I don't know if they go by they, them, or if they go by he. So I'm sorry if I'm misgendering them. But he is a person with albinism to like read the role in the script. They're listed as the albino, which that's kind of a derogatory way of saying it now. Like, we don't do that. People have albinism. They're not albinos. But then there was like a technical difficulty and his mic wasn't working, or their mic wasn't working for that whole scene. And I just like felt so sad that like they were doing this like very cool thing and then it kind of fell through. But like everyone was there. Billy Crystal like decorated his background to look like Mad Max's shop. Like the Six-Fingered Man, Christopher Guest, was like zooming in from London at like 2 a.m. for everybody else. Chris Sarandon was there. And Mandy Patinkin was there, and like the rest of them are just like having this great time being back together, and Mandy Patinkin is like full on, I am in the moment, I am acting, I am an actor, and like I was crying on my bed watching it.
Oh, that's so nice, so heartwarming.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna get back into the horror.
Yes. All right. Are we ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So my next one up is from 2003. It's Dead End.
Okay.
I tried to pick some lesser known ones.
I haven't seen this one, so.
So your boy Ray Wise is in it. Leland Palmer.
Him.
He's like one of the main characters, as is Lynn Shay, who most people would know her as Elise from Insidious. Alexandra Holden, who she was in a lot of movies in the like late 90s, early 2000s, but the one that I'm going to mention is Sugar and Spice. Do you remember Sugar and Spice with the cheerleaders and the one's pregnant? And who's the boyfriend in Sugar and Spice? James Marsden. We haven't mentioned him lately.
Oh my god. I just eventually I would like James Marsden to just
I want us to set off a Google alert on his name.
Yes.
And he's like, what the hell is this shit?
And I just want him to maybe become a fan. I don't know.
Just send us a t-shirt, man. It doesn't even have to be like a t-shirt of you. Just send us a t-shirt.
Or a Christmas card. I'd take that. Yeah.
So, this is the story of a family driving to Grandma's house on Christmas Eve. And the dad, played by Ray Wise, Frank, decides that he is bored of their normal route, so he decides to take a shortcut down a wooded road. And it's like the Pine Barrens of New Jersey wooded road. Like, there is nothing out there.
Great.
There's like kind of this like weird sequence of events that lead to him he's like almost falling asleep at the wheel. He almost collides with an oncoming car, and then they become like horrifically lost because he swerves and is like going down the road and has almost had this accident. And then they are now lost, trying to figure out their way back in the correct direction to get to Grandma's house. And they pick up this woman played by Amber Smith, and she's like out in the like woods by herself. They don't see her car. She's like hitchhiking. She's carrying a baby that's wrapped, like swaddled in blankets. And from there, things quickly go downhill.
I was going to say, everything is not going great to begin with.
The route becomes more dark and treacherous. The family numbers begin to dwindle.
Oh boy.
And a series of seemingly connected grisly roadside accidents. So you don't see really any of the gore, but you see the aftermath of it. So it's mostly off screen, but there's like a scene where somebody has clearly died horrifically and they are trying to get their cell phone, and when they pull it up, there is an ear dangling from it. So it's things like that.
Was it like a flip phone? Or because it was 2003, right?
I don't think it was a flip phone. I can't remember. I think it was just like a little brick. Like this was like early
okay.
BlackBerry type shaped phones. I was more concerned with the ear, honestly, Beth.
That's fair.
So it's you kind of, I mean, I don't know. I kind of figured it out where it was going early on, but I do that a lot. So maybe that's just a me thing, but I didn't mind watching it get to where I thought it was going. So I think it's worth a watch. It's streaming right now, I think on Prime. So
I love Ray Wise though. Good for him.
He just exudes dad energy.
He does, but it's also like manic dad energy. It's not like cool, calm, collected.
No, it's definitely like our generation's dads.
Yeah.
Like dads, well, my parents are older. Like my dad was born in the 40s, so like I'm like, yeah, that's dad energy.
I'm gonna follow you with a really oddball Christmas movie that I don't think a lot of people have heard of, but this has a lot in it. And when I say a lot, I mean you're gonna watch this and go, what the absolute hell is happening? This has Grizzly Adams in it, aka Dan Haggerty.
Okay.
This has Nazis in it.
Okay.
It has incest in it.
Well.
It has pagan rituals.
Okay.
And it has elves in it. Because that's the title, Elves.
Got it.
Okay. So, this movie was made in 1989. And it stars, as I said, Dan Haggerty, Deanna Lund, and Ken Carpenter. And it's called Elves. I can tell you that I only remember really one elf actually appearing in this movie. And it is one of the weirdest just horror movies and Christmas movies I've seen. I really feel like Dan Haggerty at that point was just like, I'm not Grizzly Adams anymore. I need to find a paycheck. And so to be fair, I've never watched him as Grizzly Adams, so I don't know what his acting was like on that TV show. But I have seen him in 2 very B horror movies, Elves, and, well, the other one wasn't really a horror movie. It was like a thriller movie. It's called like Macon County something. Anyways, so Dan Haggerty plays this like grifter, and he gets hired as Santa. So he's our hero, but put him aside.
Okay, get out of here, Grizzly Adams.
So then we see this girl named Kristen who is with her friends in the woods, and they're doing an anti-Christmas pagan ritual. And then she spills blood and awakens an ancient demonic Christmas elf.
What a waste of blood.
Yeah. And so you find out, because this elf starts causing mischief shenanigans, she mostly is seen with like her brother and her like decrepit looking grandpa. And
rude.
Yeah. Well, it'll come into play in a minute. And then it goes back to like Grizzly Adams. So he's, as I said, this grifter who is playing Santa Claus. And my favorite part of this is he's trying to figure out what is happening and why. He goes into this house of this professor. He's interrupting like Christmas Eve dinner type thing. So they're all sitting at this table, this really nice house. And he says it exactly the way I'm going to say it now, which is, "Professor, what can you tell me about these elves?" Like, doesn't even knock on the door, busts open, and just comes to this professor. It's like, what is happening? It's something you have to watch, maybe inebriated with your friends, but it was entertaining. So anyways, we find out that the elf is something that these neo-Nazis worshipped, and you find out that the grandpa is a former Nazi, and
Jesus.
Yes. And then you find out, this is where the incest comes, and I'm sorry if I'm like ruining kind of this plot. I mean, I don't suspect you guys will, if I were going to give you 2 movies to choose from, Elves and Ernest Saved Christmas, I would give you Ernest every day of the week.
You're upsetting coworker Scissorhands right now.
Yeah, sorry. But anyways, you do find out, and this is just trigger warning, I told you there's incest in it. You find out that the grandpa, the reason why this spell worked is because the granddaughter, Kristen, is the last pure Aryan of the race. Yeah, squicky.
Gross.
And you find out that the grandpa is not actually her grandpa. That is also her dad. So, yeah, that's probably the worst part. Dan Haggerty is entertaining in this. There's only one really elf that you see. And the Christmas elements are all there, though. Lots of decorations. Dan Haggerty, I think he is in a Santa costume at some point. It's the driest delivery of lines I've ever seen in a horror movie.
He's like reading them off of like a giant poster board, like just off the camera.
That would actually explain the delivery of, "Professor, what can you tell me about these elves?" Like, no, hello, how are you? Sorry for interrupting your Christmas dinner. Let me just ask you this, like, off-the-wall question. Anyways, I have to mention that. My husband, when I was talking about movies that I should mention, he's like, "Why would you mention that?" And I said, because I need to spread the information about the elves, because I just feel like other people need to share in the B movies I've had to suffer through. Sorry, guys.
I'll never get over that one zombie movie that you and your husband had me watch, like, early in our friendship. It was, like, an Italian zombie movie.
Italian dub zombie
the, like,
movie.
48-year-old child.
Which I did find out, like, that's legit. He has, like, a syndrome. Like, the man that played, he has, like, a syndrome where he's, like, he never grew. It's different than being, like, a little person. He has something where...
Is it the I don't want to butcher it.
But
where you age, like, super rapidly?
Might be. But, yeah, that poor guy. That movie, I can't remember. Burial Ground is what it's called if you guys want a zombie movie. That's
Progeria?
It might be.
That's usually like, it's usually like little kids who look like really old though, because they age like super quickly.
I will have to look. I don't remember, but he has something, which is why, or he actually was like a grown man playing a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, I just remember being like, that, sir, that is an adult.
Yes.
That is an adult playing a child who's being weird about his mom.
Incest in that too.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's like old B movies either have really terrible sexual assault scenes, and some of them you're just like, what did we just witness? And then other ones have incest in them. And I'm like, I get these are taboo subjects, and like we use horror as a lens to escape and explore these dark subjects with like still being safe at home type of thing. But, and I'm not asking for graphic things like that. I don't want that. But why do we have it in every movie?
Yeah. Gross.
It is gross. So that's the worst of the movies I'm going to talk about. I had to get it out there. I need people to, if anything, just watch the scene where he busts in on the professor's dinner, because that's gold.
Okay. So my next one is from 2016, and it's Better Watch Out.
This was also on my list, but I'm glad you're talking about it.
Okay. So it is essentially the generic summary of it is, on a quiet suburban street, a babysitter must defend a 12-year-old boy from intruders, only to discover it's far from a normal home invasion. So it stars Olivia DeJonge and Ed Oxenbould. If you've seen The Visit, the two siblings from that are also in this, but they are not playing related characters this time. And Levi Miller is the 12-year-old boy that's mentioned.
I didn't realize I looked this up today. I didn't realize he was in like the Peter Pan movie and like A Wrinkle in Time. I said, oh, such nice, happy films.
Yes. He reminds me of a kid that I knew when I was in high school. He was a girl that I went to high school with, little brother, who did like shows with me. Like we did The Music Man in high school, and so we needed like an Aloysius and like we needed like little kids, so we brought them up from the elementary school, and he looks exactly like the kid who played my son in that, who played Winthrop. And so I was just, that was like, what is happening right now? Virginia Madsen is the mom in this movie, and Patrick Warburton is the dad. I love Patrick Warburton so much. They're only in it briefly. They leave. The babysitter shows up. The main character boy, played by Levi Miller, is like, he has a huge crush on his babysitter. Mm-hmm. His friend's trying to get him to make a move.
Which is, as a former babysitter and having something similar happen to me, but like the age difference was a year rather than several years, it's uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable.
Dacre Montgomery is in it later as one of the babysitter's ex-boyfriends. So that's Billy from Stranger Things. Or, I mean, like, he's been in a ton of movies that I've really enjoyed him in. He was also in, like, the new Power Rangers movies. Yeah. He was in the Lonely Hearts Club or Broken Hearts Club, where the girl takes all the people's, like, stuff from their exes and makes a museum.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
He's adorable in that. It's like a rom-com. But he's in it as, like, kind of a shitty ex-boyfriend. And I don't want to go into anything deeper than that because I don't want to spoil it, but I will say that there's like a part where I thought to myself, I'm like, this feels like a 12-year-old watched Funny Games and was like, all right, let's do that. Like there are parts that I still go back and forth on, like, was this intentionally meant to be as like bad as it was? Like, was this how a person was directed to act, or was that like a natural choice and it's just like very cringe? Because I'm thinking of like with the baseball bat and the hallway, and the like little like dance, but it's like a really bad dance, and it's like not an appropriate time for it, and like it's not as cool as the person thinks it is because it's not going right. So like, and like trying to flip the bat and like not quite making it, but like grabbing it with the other hand, and so I don't know. And like Dead End, all of the like gore happens off screen in that as well. You see some of the aftermath, like there's a lot of like, oh, you see blood dripping, or you see like blood spatter on the wall, or you see a person after the fact from a distance.
Right.
But you don't see it happen necessarily.
It does feel more thrillery than like a typical horror movie. But it is a horror movie, definitely. But it also has a twist ending without giving anything away too. I'm trying to think of like, there is a big plot twist that we are definitely hotly avoiding. All the Christmas elements I was going to say are there. The house is like beautifully decorated.
There's a very strong Home Alone reference.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at without ruining the reference.
A very strong Home Alone reference. Like it is directly said like, oh, well, in Home Alone, and then
so yeah,
makes me want a hot dog real bad.
I would say it's a okay horror movie. It's better than Elves.
I had fun. I kind of avoided it because I think it got some like bad press when it first came out. Like everyone said it sucked, and so I was like, all right, well, I'll watch it later. And then because I was trying to pick like lesser known ones or maybe less popular ones for this, I gave it a watch. I'm like, oh, that wasn't bad. I like had an okay time with that.
Yeah. I didn't hate it. I think I can't say anything more about what I dislike about it without giving away the plot twist. So I'll just table that for another time. And then I guess we can talk about a different movie. I will start with Silent Night, Deadly Night, which to me, when I think of like Christmas horror slasher films, this is quintessentially the movie I think of. There's a very, very iconic, I will call it an iconic kill scene, which is funny because Grady Hendrix actually references this in his book, The Final Girl Support Group. I love that. I'm like, it. You know, I avoided this movie for a really long time because I was like, oh, it has a reputation. Like still today, it's considered like video trash almost. So this came out in 1984. It was originally called Sleigh Ride, which I think is a good title as well, and tells the story of Billy, a young man who experiences a psychotic break and goes on a murder spree dressed as Santa Claus. So it was pulled from theaters in November of 1984 after a series of protests against the film. It has multiple sequels. If you watch, I'll just make a quick mention of Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. So this picks up right after the first movie. If you watch it, about 80 to 90% of that movie is just, it's literally just Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1. And then there's just new stuff. Like a little bit, I want to say maybe 20 minutes of the whole movie is like new. Everything else is literally just the old film spliced into it. Which, you know what, that's fair because if you've watched this movie, it is a very solid slasher movie. You find out why Billy has a psychotic break. And like it's not a secret. And he, you know, he was a little boy and he has a little brother and they're in a car and they're like driving home with their parents. And you can tell this is an 80s movie because the baby's in the front seat with the mom. There's no seatbelts. It's like an old, like
all like a bench seat.
Yes.
That like your legs used to stick to in the summertime.
Yes. It was released on November 9th, 1984. And then a week after its release. So it was in theaters 1 week and it was pulled amidst controversy because people were upset that it had a killer Santa Claus. It was the 80s. It was the Reagan era. Like nobody could handle that. Billy is 5 years old when this is happening. So when they're visiting his catatonic grandpa. When they leave the room, his grandpa awakens and tells Billy to fear Santa Claus as he punishes the naughty. This comes into play. So then when they're on their way back home, a criminal dressed as Santa, who had just robbed a liquor store, attempts to carjack the family. So Billy's dad tries to drive away, and the Santa Claus shoots him, and then sexually assaults Billy's mom before slashing her throat. Billy flees because he's 5 years old, and he just witnessed his parents getting murdered, and he left his baby brother Ricky in the car. Ricky survived. Ricky's fine. So then, 3 years later, they are celebrating Christmas in an orphanage run by Mother Superior, who is very strict and beats children who misbehaves and considers punishment to be a good thing. So they're in this like orphanage essentially, and they have like Mother Superior just be this like terrible human to them. Like she's a nun and she's just being, quite frankly, she's being an asshole to the kids. And these two boys especially,
thanks Catholicism,
have, you know, this very traumatic thing happening, and like she's only emphasizing that like naughty children are punished and stuff like that. So you can imagine poor Billy growing up in this orphanage and stuff like that, like has a little PTSD that he's got to kind of deal with. And then it flashes forward to him being a grown-up, like an 18-year-old man. He's very good looking, by the way. Like, I am not gonna lie, I'm a little attracted to Billy in the movie. I'm just like, all right. And he gets a job and he starts to work at a toy store. And he is fine working at the toy store the whole entire, I think he starts in like the spring. He is fine until it's Christmas time. And then he starts to kind of have a panic. And then on circumstances beyond his control, he is kind of forced to be Santa because they don't have a Santa. So he suffers a psychotic break and then starts going on a killing spree. So that's like all of that stuff is like the first third of the movie, and then the second two parts are kind of the what you would consider like a slasher movie, a typical slasher.
Got it.
Very much has all of the Christmas elements you were expecting, but it's like psychologically you kind of feel for Billy because you're just like, yeah, man, if my parents were murdered and I had to witness it at 5 years old, I think I'd be pretty messed up too. Not to mention the fact that like I have, you know, this authoritarian like nun beating me anytime I do anything that deviates from what she considers good. Great. Good times. And we couldn't handle that in the Reagan era because we were too buttoned up for it. Like, we didn't want to have that conversation. I'm like, we should have this conversation. Like, crime is not good. And we should be dealing with mental health instead of, like, forcing kids to repress it. Then these bad, terrible things happen. Wonder how that works. I like this movie, though. So, it's not a feel-good slasher movie. And when it ends, it does resolve itself and whatnot, but you still have the sequel to contend with. But there is a really great quote from the sequel that I'll say with no context, which is "garbage day," and it's said exactly like that. Again, that movie, that's like the only new material of that part, and then it's all pretty much Silent Deadly Night Part 1. And then you have the kills, which, as I said, it has a famous kill dealing with antlers, and that's all I'll tell without super spoiling anything. I mean, I guess that is a big spoiler, but if you just Google Silent Night, Deadly Night, I'm sure that comes up.
And if you've read that Grady Hendrix book, then you already know what she's talking about because it's also in that book. Yes, heavily mentioned. There's also remakes to this, but I'm not going to get into those. And there's like more after. I think there's like 4 movies in the. We don't need to talk about those. I have seen none of them. If you're going to watch any of them, just watch the first one. Okay. It's traumatic enough. Yeah, it doesn't really sound like something I want to watch, but I might give it a try someday. Still better than Elves. For sure, watch it at home, have to take breaks in between movie. Yes. My next one is actually like brand spanking new. It's from 2023. It's a Wonderful Knife. I love this title already. I got so excited when I went to see Thanksgiving because we were talking about this, and I was like, it's already like out in theaters, and then it had like a super limited theater run. I think like at least around here, like I only saw one place was showing it. By the time I saw that they were showing it, it only had like 2 more days that week that they had scheduled, and then there was nothing. And now it went to streaming where you had to pay, and now it's free streaming. Great. What is it on? Prime, I think. Okay. I think maybe it's either Prime or if you have AMC Plus. Okay. which I have through Prime. So I it might not be free for everyone yet, but I think it should be soon. Much like you may have guessed, it is a play on It's a Wonderful Life, which, God, I'm such a weird person. Like, I realize, like, telling stories about my childhood, which I honestly don't remember much of my childhood, which is like a story for a whole other day. I'm sure that's not a good thing. But I, like, really loved It's a Wonderful Life as a kid, which is, like, not a movie that most kids want to watch. It's in black and white. It's Jimmy Stewart.
Yep.
It's, like, a really sad Christmas movie, which is why I liked it.
I haven't seen that movie. I've seen only bits and pieces. I was introduced to it via Alvin and the Chipmunks, which their 90s cartoon special, where Alvin is Jimmy Stewart's character.
Yeah, so It's a Wonderful Life it's sort of the life story of this guy who, like, grew up and never left his small town through a series of events, played by Jimmy Stewart. And on Christmas Eve, he, like, wishes that, you know, like, he just wishes that, like, he was never born. He's thinking about killing himself by jumping off of a bridge, and this angel named Clarence intervenes and shows him what the world would be like if he never existed. And he realizes that though he doesn't feel like it, he has had a huge impact in the lives of everyone in his town. And he decides, you know, I don't want to die. I want to live. Like, I see everything differently now. Like, I want to go back and, you know, I have this new appreciation for things. And then that's where the, like, really, it's such a twee line, but that's the, like, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings comes from. And then, like, Clarence gets his angel wings because he helped.
Clarence.
Yeah, and he's, like, running through the town, like, oh, Merry Christmas, movie theater. Oh, Merry Christmas, Mr. Candy Store. Merry Christmas, everyone. And
Is that town the same town as Back to the Future? Is the same town as Gremlins? Like, is that the same movie backdrop?
It could be.
I feel like
they're all very small town feel, and this also has a small town feel. That is the name in the actual movie is so George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life lives in Bedford Falls. In It's a Wonderful Knife, Winnie, our main character, lives in Angel Falls.
Okay.
And the beginning of the movie, it's Christmas or Christmas Eve. Winnie is, like, going with her brother to a party with all of their friends. It's just kind of a general, like, Christmassy vibe. There's Christmas lights. There's, like, kids making out, whatever. And this masked psychotic killer called the Angel, who's dressed all in white and looks like some kind of villain.
Bold, all in white.
Yeah, it's all in white with, like, a weird opaque mask. And it's a very strange costume, and it feels like something that would have been in, like, an American Horror Story season. Like, it reminds me of, like, the leather guy from the first one. This killer is, like, running amok on Christmas Eve, murdering people, and Winnie saves the town from the killer. So then we flash forward a year, and her life sucks. Like, her family treats her like shit.
Oh.
The town generally hates her. And so she wishes she was never born, and she, like, sees this weird, like, aurora borealis type thing on the bridge when she wishes this, and she finds herself magically transported to a parallel universe version of her city where no one ever stopped the angel, and it has killed multiple people throughout the year.
Great.
And everything is totally different. And so she has to team up with sort of, like, the social outcast who everyone just calls Weirdo, but her name is Bernie.
Oh.
And the two of them have to work together to A, figure out who is the killer, and B, how to get her back to, like, her reality. Justin Long is in this.
Oh.
And it's very obvious that he's doing a weird Jimmy Stewart impression. Like, he has fake teeth in it.
No.
And he's always just like, oh, hello, little girl. Oh, you've been through a trauma. Well, come here. Just let me hug you. Get on in here. How are you? All right. So that's weird. I did the, like, Leonardo DiCaprio, like, whistle pointing at the screen thing because William B. Davies is in there. And like, I don't know if that means anything to you, but
Not-
to my little nerd psychopath heart, I looked at him and I was like, the cigarette smoking man from the X-Files? And I was so excited. So he's in there. He is actually the grandfather of Winnie's best friend. And Joel McHale plays her dad.
I love Joel McHale.
I do too. He looks a lot like one of my exes, and that gives me the ick sometimes when I look at him, but I'm like, you are so funny and you are so good looking. And I watched Community in its entirety when I started going back to school because I felt like him. Like, I was so much older than everyone else and I'm back in school like a dork. But he's very good as the dad, and it was better than I was expecting. It's not like the best thing I've ever seen, but it's definitely not the worst. And there are like a lot of like, all right, like, you obviously saw this coming. Let's do it. It's a Wonderful Life reference.
Mm-hmm.
We get some like nice queer rep in this.
Oh, okay.
I haven't looked into the actors in this movie to see if any of them actually are queer or if this is one of those situations, but it is just like and it's not like, oh my god, they were roommates. It's not one of those. It's just like, oh yeah, like, she's a lesbian. So that's that. I enjoyed that part of it. Aside from like the weird Justin Long teeth and that I kept feeling like this was like a Ryan Murphy situation with the way the killer looked, I think it's worth a watch.
All right, well, it's better than Elves. That's the standard now.
This is our new Elves is our new what was it? Blood was the Thanksgiving one we did? Blood Feast. Blood Feast.
Oh god, we forgot already.
We repressed it.
I will go next with, this is of more recent. This is probably my favorite Christmas horror movie that has been released, and I actually went to theaters to see this with my mom and my husband, and I remember when we went, I did not wear like Christmas stuff or anything to see it, but I definitely remember seeing it in December and remember being like, I'm like filled with Christmas spirit now. But I also remember like it was unreasonably warm for Ohio, where it was like a 55 or 60 degree windy day in December, where you're just like, it does not feel like Christmas time. And this movie is very much, I will say, for every horror element, it encapsulates Christmas, I just think, so well on so many different levels. So the film I'm talking about is 2015's Krampus. And it's directed by Michael Dougherty, which it took me until I think like 2 years ago. I think I never put the connection of who directed it, but I was like, oh, he directed Trick or Treat. Oh,
he's from Columbus.
This is why I like this movie so much. And then I'm like, wait a minute. This actually makes a lot of sense of why, like, it's so much incorporated into the movie, like all the holiday aspects. I actually showed the first opening credits scene, the title scene, to our Buddy the Elf coworker, because I said, you have to watch this because it takes, I think is it the most wonderful time of the year?
I think so.
Which I said, I love when Christmas songs are used kind of ironically in a movie, but you just gotta picture this. So you have this like very quintessential song of "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year," paired with, it shows kind of a Black Friday-esque madness of this this department store is very ubiquitous, where it could be like a Sam's Club, it could be a Home Depot. It's got like the coloring of a Home Depot but the feel of a Sam's Club. It's got a little bit of everything. There's a Christmas pageant happening in the back of it. Just people are being nasty to each other. They're taking presents from one another. The workers look dead-eyed because they're just being like screamed at by like these people. And it's it's just a montage of people. You see people getting trampled as people are trying to stampede the store. And then it pans back, because this is all done in kind of slow motion. Things are being destroyed, like decorations and stuff. People are just literally snatching things. And it pans back to this Christmas pageant, and you see these two little boys in Christmas costumes beating the crap out of one another. And then you see, like, Adam Scott. Adam Scott, thank you.
Would have been a very different movie if Adam Driver had been in it.
Yes. He would have been too young at that point, I think, to be in it.
What do you mean? What do you mean, homie?
I think he would have, been too young, like a fresh, like in his 20s or early 20s at that point.
He's like 40 now, so he would have only been in his like late 30s.
You know what? I think because he looks so young in Star Wars, I just think that he's lucky you just age well, sir. Like when he played in that movie that got parodied and memed all over, The Marriage Story, I was like, him and Scarlett Johansson aren't the same age. And now you're telling me, yes, Beth, they are like the same age.
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
That's where good soup comes from, which I use all the time. I just love Adam Driver. I love Adam Scott too.
I love Adam Scott. And I remember when I first saw this movie and Adam Scott was playing against Toni Collette, I was like, no, he's like a baby in Parks and Rec. He's young.
No, he's just got that Paul Rudd deal where he doesn't age.
And I was like, he's wearing sweaters. Am I attracted to him now? What is happening? Like, he plays opposite in Big Little Lies with Reese Witherspoon as her, like, middle-aged husband, and I'm just like, I can't.
He's
I know you're appropriately cast, but I know you're a baby in my brain.
He's also Amy Poehler's husband on Parks and Rec.
Yes, but he still perpetually looks.
I just also think it's because I always think Toni Collette is older than she is.
Yes,
like
because she's been acting forever.
Yeah, and she has kind of looked the same this whole time.
Yes.
So like it's not that I'm like, oh, she like looks old. That's not what I'm saying. I just feel it in my brain. I always think she's older than she is.
Yes, because she has been acting for like 20 some years.
Terrible.
So anyways, Toni Collette's in this. She plays the mom. Adam Scott is in this, and he plays the dad. And they have two kids. David Koechner, Allison Tolman.
David Koechner or Koechner is for me forever. He's Champ from Anchorman.
Oh.
Like that's just, he is Champ in everything that he's in.
And it's got a really good cast in it.
Is it Conchata Farrell that she was the housekeeper on 2.5 Men?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and she plays their like grumpy aunt.
She's great in it. There is a bulldog in this movie, and I believe the bulldog survives. So
yeah, I think Rosie's okay.
Rosie's okay. Probably the only person that's okay in that family. Without spoiling too much. But anyways, so that's what you open up to, is just kind of sheer chaos. And the little boy, his name's Max. They live, so it's Sister Beth, Max, older sister who's like a teen, Max is like at the age, I think he's like 10 or 11. Where he's at the age where
it's like kind of not cool to like Santa anymore, but like he still is very much into Santa.
Yes. And they live with his German grandma, and they have this beautiful, beautiful home. And Toni Collette, they're getting ready for their relatives to come, and it's Toni Collette's sister. And the sister and her husband and 3 daughters come with the aunt, and they're you can tell that like Max's family is kind of upper middle class. They have a very nice 2-story house. Everyone has a big bedroom. Like she has a separate dining room, and
there's also a boy cousin.
Oh, there is a boy cousin. I forgot about.
They have the 2 girls,
the girls,
boy, and then the baby, who's also a girl.
There's 4 kids total. And they come in this like super souped up truck, and you just get the impression that like the two sisters are at odds. The tensions are high. Toni Collette's trying to make this like beautiful, wonderful family meal. And there's already tension at the table because she serves like Cornish hens and like they're like, what is this? Why are you trying to put on airs, essentially? And they don't live like that. And the two girls of the sisters are teenagers, and they're both very tomboyish, and they don't really mess with the older sister Beth, but they do pick on Max like quite a bit. So there is a lot of like kind of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation vibes of like Cousin Eddie type of like, you know, we're gonna put up with you, but we don't like it. And it quickly takes kind of a dark turn because Max is gonna write a letter to Santa, and the girls like make fun of him, and he angrily tears up the letter and throws it outside into the snow. And this is what summons Krampus. And so if you haven't seen this movie already, I'm sorry, you should. But pretty much from there, Krampus starts making some Christmas evil magic. Yeah. So there's a snowstorm, there's evil gingerbread men, they're
my favorite.
Their
amazing. Names are Lumpy, Dumpy, and Crumpy. Did you know that?
I did not know
and
that.
Seth Green voices one of them.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So there's evil gingerbread men that attack them. This sounds silly, but it is legitimately spooky.
It's like actual cookies that are like luring like people into traps. And then there's like a whole scene with that like a flaming car crash, but it's a toy car and it's in like slow motion. And
there is a giant Jack in the Box.
A lot of evil toys.
So actually Grady Hendrix would love this, I think.
A lot of terrifying elf masks.
A lot of the little elves that follow So I would say the beauty of this movie is you don't see Krampus in like full monster glory until pretty much the very end of the movie. All you see and all you hear are like giant hooves.
You hear like
jingling
war horns,
bells,
I think, and like bells.
And it's just truly, it's like such a well done Christmas horror movie where all of the horror elements and all the Christmas elements go hand in hand. The power goes out in the house, and the toys and the demonic presences of the elves are wreaking havoc, and you know, they're just trying to survive. But the family does get kind of picked off one by one. And then Adam Scott and like his brother-in-law kind of have to team up together to fight off these things. And, you know, the family has to come together to kind of work out differences in order to survive. So it's, as I said, it is one of my favorite Christmas movies. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, you should. It does not have a lot of feel-good moments in it, but it does have a lot of dark comedy elements which work perfectly. Like the dog at one point grabs one of the evil gingerbread men and like chews it up like a cookie, which is like hysterical because at that point they're trying to shoot it with a shotgun and they run out of like shells, and you're like, oh my god, this gingerbread man's gonna murder this person, and then the dog comes and saves the day.
Like, yeah, you idiots, they're cookies, just eat them.
So yeah, if you're looking for like a fun Christmas horror movie, this is the one I would choose. This is always my recommendation.
Similar kind of vibes go to Violent Night, which was from 2022.
I remember this one coming out because I kind of wanted to see it because of who stars in it. So. Yeah.
The stars David Harbour, who some of you may know better as Hopper from Stranger Things, as Santa Claus. It also has Beverly D'Angelo, who is the mom from the National Lampoon's Vacation movies. John Leguizamo is in it. Cam Gigandet, who, if you're a Twilight person, he was James, the like blonde ponytail vampire.
Yes, I know James.
I remember Cam Gigandet from Burlesque, starring Cher and Christina Aguilera.
Okay, two different things.
Yeah.
I did watch Twilight. I did not watch Burlesque.
Yeah. So he's in it as this sort of like idiot trophy boyfriend of like one of the characters. But it is essentially same vibes. It's like a family get together at Christmas time with a family that does not really spend time together. Your main characters are, he's the child of like Beverly D'Angelo and his wife and daughter. And they go to this like, it's just like rich people house. It is like a huge mansion on this huge estate with like lots of grounds. They have like tons of money. There is like a whole argument over like inheritance type things, as you do in families. And essentially on Christmas Eve, amidst all of this, a team of mercenaries breaks into the family compound, takes everyone hostage. And the only way that they are going to get saved is that Santa is stopping by on his rounds to drop off presents for the kids. So Santa essentially has to save the day, like Die Hard style.
Oh my God.
It's an action movie more than it is anything else, but there is a lot of murder, so I'm lumping it in here with horror. They're the bad guys, which I'm just going to go ahead and say John Leguizamo is like the leader of the bad guys. His character's name is Scrooge. The other bad guys are named Tinsel, Gingerbread, and Candy Cane.
What terrible mercenary names.
So that's like their code names that they're saying over their like radios. And there is like a series of like Home Alone booby trap type scenes. There is like this huge like life-size nativity that's clearly meant to have like live animals in it outside that is like the scene of a massacre. There is this somewhat of a twist at the end that I don't want to give away. So like you kind of think it is going one way and then it goes a different way and has like, I feel like you will be happy with the ending. You will be satisfied. There is a mid-credit scene that I would urge everyone to like sit through those first parts of the credits. Sit through the credits always, because a lot of people put hard work into this other than just the actors that you see, and they don't get credit other than the credits. But if you're streaming it at home, which is how most people watch things now, don't just immediately stop it and go to something else. Watch the mid-credit scene and then you can go about your life. And there is a sequel in development.
Oh boy. Well, now I feel like I have to watch that.
Just watch it before the sequel comes out.
Calendar year. We'll see what happens. I'm really just trying to watch, like, we've just been catching stuff on TV lately because that's where I'm at in this season of life. And so I've seen the same kind of scene of Home Alone now, like, 5 times already.
It was on when I got here.
Yeah. Where he sits down and he goes, yes, a nice like mac and cheese, and he's doing his little prayer. And I'm just like,
the countdown starting.
Yes. And I'm just like, I appreciate this, but I need to watch a different like movie. I would like to.
Your tater tot was into it.
Yes. Well, all the violence and stuff. As I said today, we had
the tarantula.
In the tarantula. We had Jingle All the Way on, and like that has a whole Santa, Big Show's in that too. So it has a whole thing of Arnold fighting some Santas.
Go home, Booster, no one likes you.
So, that's one exposure that I finally had to a different movie, but I'm just like, I just would like to watch a couple of Christmas movies that aren't Home Alone right now. I'm a little Home Aloned out. I'm surprised they haven't showed a bunch of different ones. Like, I don't know what's happening on TV. I don't know if they're saving it like all for the next 2 weeks or what, but
who knows?
I don't know. I'm not in charge, but if I were, I would say, hey, let's change it up. There's like 8 billion Christmas movies.
There's probably something stupid with streaming rates. Like, it's probably only like certain like streaming services have the rates to show it, and so like regular TV is like, we can't show you anything. We don't want to pay for it.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't think about that. I hate this now. I hate it. Anyways, moving on. The last movie that I want to talk about that I want to talk about it because this was also a quintessential movie that made and developed Beth's childhood into adulthood. It's also a core like childhood holiday memory for me.
The song is in my head now.
And I need to put those two things out there. Like, I have vivid memories of watching this with my cousins, and they fell asleep, but I stayed awake, and my mom like had it on, and I remember being both like extremely intrigued by this movie, but also a little scared. And the movie I am talking about is Gremlins. This movie was made in 1984. It's considered American comedy horror. It was directed by Joe Dante, written by Christopher Columbus. You would know who this is because he directed Home Alone and also the first Harry Potter movie, which, thinking about, all feel kind of the same vibes. It stars Zach Galligan, who I've actually met. He's really nice. Had a very awkward encounter with him because I talked about his other thing I've seen him, his other acting credit I've seen him in, which was after school special from the 80s about STDs, and his like celebrity handler was very confused.
Which one was it? It wasn't the one with Molly Ringwald, right?
No, it was a different one. He goes all the way with his girlfriend, and she went all the way with somebody else at summer camp, and so he gets it's like the one STD where like girls can carry it but they don't know they have it, but it like I think gonorrhea. Like manifests on guys horrendously.
Got it. I just always think of the one where Molly Ringwald gets AIDS.
Yeah,
she gets HIV, and it like what scaremongering bullshit it was is all I'm gonna say, because I'm like, wow, way to make everyone like hate gay people in the 80s and 90s. This is bullshit.
Like, I don't blame the actors in that because they're just trying to get
a paycheck.
Yeah,
man.
it's a paycheck. But I was like, it's really hysterical because we watched that and I went, Gremlins, what are you doing in here? You don't have like a lot of other movies. Why are you in this? And then I'm just like, oh. And so then I bring it up in person because that's how I am. And he's like laughing like, ha ha ha, like, yeah, thanks. And then the handler's like, you have it? Like, what? And we're like, no.
So it'd be like if I became famous and somebody was like, oh my god, I watched that movie in Driver's Ed that was in 3D where you got sprayed with a beer. And I'd be like, wow, I remember that. Thanks. I looked really skinny in that. Thanks for watching.
So anyways, Zach Galligan's in it. Phoebe Cates is in it.
They're both gorgeous.
Yes.
I have huge crushes on both of them in this movie. Despite Phoebe Cates' monologue.
Hoyt Axton, Polly Holliday, and Frances Lee McCain, and Howie Mandel does the voice of Gizmo. So you first see this guy, this white guy in like an Asian like part of like a city, like an urban area, like a Chinatown,
Koreatown,
and he gets this little boy. This little boy's like, "Come here, mister. You want like a present?" So this little boy like lures him into his grandpa's store and essentially sells him this little like critter under the grandpa's nose. And as he's leaving, he is told like by the little boy, there's 3 rules about this critter. It can't see sunlight, that'll kill it. You can't get it wet, and then don't ever feed it after midnight. So, and then it opens to this like very picturesque, very holiday, like Christmas is incorporated in 90% of this movie. It is very much a Christmas movie, without even trying that. It is very much a Christmas movie. Christmas is quintessential to its plot. But it opens up to this beautiful scene of like snow and stuff like that. As I said, the downtown is the same exact backdrop and downtown of Back to the Future. So if you're like, this looks so familiar, that's why, because you've seen it before. If you've seen Back to the Future, you've been Back to the Future too. You've seen that downtown.
Were they filmed like right around the same time?
Well, this was filmed in 84, so yes, I think a couple of years apart.
That makes sense then.
So I will say as an aside, when Joe Dante first got the Christopher Columbus script, he wanted to film it as like a straight horror movie. And then I believe Steven Spielberg was the executive producer and was like, no, let's not do that.
Excellent decision, because I don't think it would be as good if it was just a straight horror movie.
But it's got all of the horror elements to it. So
I think the heart of this comes from the dark comedy of
Yes.
the Gremlins.
Yes. So the Gremlins are based off of like an old kind of legend around World War II. Like you might have heard like people talking about there's folkloric mischievous creatures that cause malfunctions amongst like manufacturing. They call them gremlins. So there's definitely like Tiny Toon adventures and like Looney Tune like cartoons like talking about gremlins. Twilight Zone has like a very famous gremlin like episode. The Simpsons parody that. So anyways, we get this Billy gets this present for Christmas, this mogwai, and he's taking care of it. Like he's doing a good job. It sets up like the family. He works he's an adult. He lives at home. He works as a banker, and he brings his dog to work.
God, I hate the old lady in this movie so much.
So he works as like a banker. He works with Phoebe Cates. His mom like stays at home. She does like odd jobs here and there. His dad is an inventor, but he's not like a very good inventor. He's got good ideas. He's just not good at executing them. And so then they get this mogwai, and he's taking care of the mogwai, and everything seems to be okay. But then, and Corey Feldman's in this movie.
I was gonna say, baby Corey Feldman shows up and ruins everything.
And Corey Feldman meets this mogwai, and he accidentally gets the mogwai wet. When he gets the mogwai wet, and this is Gizmo, little fur balls pop off of him, and they become also mogwai, but they're not quite right. They're not, like, Gizmo's very sweet and inquisitive and nice, and these mogwai are not. Like, one of them hawks like a giant loogie. It's disgusting. They don't play with Gizmo, and they're just kind of, like, treacherous. And so, unbeknownst to Billy, they trick him into feeding them after midnight. And when they do that, it becomes very like pod people. You see these like oozy green pods, and they're eggs. And essentially, because they get fed, they turn into gremlins, and then they start wreaking havoc on the small town. I, again, love this movie. There is a Phoebe Cates monologue about why she hates Christmas.
In the middle, so it is like chaos raining down outside. Like things are on fire. There are gremlins all over their town. People have been murdered by the gremlins at this point.
It's like considered a family film, but there's murders, and you see them happen. They're not blood and guts.
Launch an old woman out a window of her house in her like electric lift up her stairs, and like you just see her like dead on the ground with her feet in the air.
But you're also like good.
Yeah, she sucked. I mean, I feel bad for her cats, but like, so people have been murdered. It is chaos. Like, I almost get hit by a car running across the street, and out of nowhere, Phoebe Cates is just like, the worst thing that ever happened to me was on Christmas. It was horrible. It was Christmas Eve. I was 9 years old. And, like, goes on this whole monologue about how she and her mom were decorating the tree, and her dad didn't come home, so they call, and, like, they think that he just bailed on them. And then, like, 5 or 6 days later, she, like, is like, everything's falling apart. It was snowing outside, so I went to light a fire, and that's when I smelled the smell. And they, like, call the fire department, and they think that it's going to be a dead cat or a bird, and instead they pull out her dead dad because he was dressed like Santa coming down the chimney to surprise her with presents, and he broke his neck and died inside the chimney. And she's like, and that's how I found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. And it's like, all right, I'm sorry you went through this trauma, but we don't have time for this shit right now, Phoebe Cates. I don't care how cute you are. Save that for later. Now's not the time. People are dying right now. All right? You're gonna get murdered by a gremlin.
You're also like, Christopher Columbus, what were you on that you were like, let's add a very dramatic monologue? And
it's out of nowhere, and it feels so misplaced. And like every time I watch it, I am just like, yes, I am Gizmo, because he watches it and just has this like what face, and his little ears are like and they just fall down. And it's just like,
and this is after like
horrified.
After the gremlins are like attacking, and there's been a whole like montage scene of like Phoebe Cates works at a bar, like she volunteered works at a bar because that's what kind of small town this is. And like there's like a flasher gremlin, there's like a gremlin like doing flash dance moves. Yes. They're like hanging off the chandeliers and
love the
ceiling.
One. There's one that's like sitting by himself, and there's like jazz music
the
playing.
Film noir gremlin.
And then there's like another gremlin with like a sock puppet. And he's like,
yes.
Yes. And I'm always like, I would be the gremlin with the sock puppet, or maybe the one that's dressed like Flashdance doing breakdancing. Or maybe the one in the movie theater with the popcorn bucket stuck on his ears. It's just like,
and yeah, they go to a movie theater. They're watching Snow White, and they just want to eat like
McDonald's.
They just want like sugar. So like all of these elements are interspersed wonderfully with like the horror elements. Like for example, when the gremlins first hatch, the mom has to go upstairs, and Billy is like in the bedroom, the attic bedroom. Like it's definitely the attic, but it's like a bedroom. And she like, as she's going up the stairs, it's like her eyes are level with the floor, and she can see that all of them have hatched, and she's like, oh no. And then like there's definitely like she's making cookies, Christmas cookies in the kitchen, and they're trying to attack her. She uses like her kitchen utensils to pick them off one by one, so she doesn't get killed.
Yeah.
And then like there's one hiding in the Christmas tree, and it's so scary because you're just like, oh my god, because it like it just jumps on her through the Christmas tree, and you don't see it at first, so you are as startled as Billy's mom is. Yeah, this movie's on my always to watch. Like I actually did watch this Christmas last year during my Tater Tots nap time. So
Billy has some wild line readings in this movie too, though, because like when he realizes they've tricked him, he's like, Mom, what's going on here? Like, his mom had anything to do with it. And then when they're at the movie theater, he's like, they're watching Snow White, and they love it.
I always take that as just like disbelief. And then the special effects in this movie are really good for like what they are. Like there's some stop motion in there. There's some definitely like ooey gooey parts in there where you're just
oh
like,
my god, the ending in the like greenhouse is so disgusting.
Yes.
It reminds me of like the dip from Roger Rabbit.
Yes. And it's just, as I said, this kind of resurgence in popularity. Like, so I didn't have Furbies because
I had one against my will, and I hated it.
I told my mom those are the devil's toy. Like, I did not like those. But I did have, like, a Furby gizmo. And we did eventually hide those in the giant toy box we had because, you know, when those go off in the middle of the night and nobody's around, you're just like, what?
Yeah, my aunt got them for me and my cousin. And I like hated it because it just annoyed the crap out of me, and it also reminded me of Gremlins. But I remember like hiding it in my closet, and then like my younger cousin was just like, oh, I woke it up, and I like yelled at her, and then I felt really bad. But she still talks about it. She's like, I remember when I woke up your Furby and you screamed at me.
I don't know how like those were created, and they were like, we're gonna market these for children, they're gonna love them.
I don't know. I don't know. The takeaway for me from Gremlins was less like the Furbies though, and more the like the like Mogwai voice, because it was like, oh, like I can like I can do that voice, okay. Which then like years later it came back as like Stitch with the like Hannah means family, which then I said is a gateway to Gollum, because you start off as like blur punch back, no punch back, and then it's nasty hobbitses. Like it's as me, I was just like, oh, it is the Mogwai to Gollum pipeline.
Sorry, dear listeners, again for 2 weeks of impressions in a row.
They don't know that yet. That's next week. They're gonna get it this week and next week.
That's true. There's just this is your life now.
And then the week before they got Don't Make Me Sing.
That's right. Sorry, guys.
Listen, this is what happens. It's weird of you to think that podcasters don't have any voice actor background.
I don't.
It's the same thing. It's either that or ASMR. That'll be next year on the pod.
Yep.
I'll just start cracking open cans all the time.
That'll be our Patreon, right? We'll just do a whole ASMR.
It'll be horror ASMR. I'll just be sharpening knives.
That'll quickly derail into like, let's stab a watermelon.
All of the Foley artist stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, then I will just tailspin deeper off of that one and go to Puka, which is from 2018. This is another installment in the Into the Dark anthology series from Hulu. It's the first season's Christmas episode, and it is about a struggling actor who takes on a seasonal holiday job as the mascot for the year's hottest new toy, Puka. However, after putting the costume on, he develops two personalities, one for himself and one for Puka. And so this is Nyasha Hatendi is the guy who plays the actor, and then Dale Dickey's in it, who, like, I love Dale Dickey in anything that she shows up in, but she's like his neighbor in this. And it's the Puka toy is, so a Puka is like a Celtic creature from folklore that is mischievous, but it's not necessarily good or bad. Like, it could signal good luck or bad luck. It has gremlin qualities. It does cause a lot of mischief. It generally appears as some kind of animal. So there is like the stage play Harvey, which then got made into a movie, also starring Jimmy Stewart, where that giant rabbit is a puka. It's in like Darby O'Gill and the Little People as a horse. Like, they used to sometimes, they would say that they would appear as horses and they would like trick you into getting on their back, and then they would run you miles away from your house and then dump you off as the morning breaks. Then you have to figure out how to get home. So they're not necessarily bad creatures. They just like to cause mischief. My dog's name was Puka, but not because of that. I just thought it was a fun coincidence once I found that out. My dog was named after the dog from Anastasia, which that Puka is short for Pushinka, which means fluffy. But this Puka is sort of like a giant teddy bear type rabbit creature. I think it looks more like a kurnt. If anybody is like Slavic and you know what like that looks like.
Okay.
I'll show Beth a picture after this. They have like Krampus vibes. But
I've because of the thing in Cleveland. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he has this huge costume on, and like he starts to put on the costume, and it's kind of now it reminds me a little bit of the chapters about the like gorilla puppeting from that Grady Hendrix book, where like they all kind of became Pupkin and forgot what happened. The actor progressively loses himself more and more throughout the movie, to the point where he's not sure if like things are real or not, and like the Puka is doing like horrific things, but he's like, did I do that? Was that the Puka? Like, I can't tell the difference anymore. And it like, you just watch the slow descent into madness, essentially. And it's at Christmas time, and everyone's like losing their minds over this Puka toy, because it could be good or bad, and you don't know which one it's going to be. And it like will record you and play back what you say, but you don't get to pick what it records. So you might be talking to it and just be like, "Hi, Puka, what do you want to do today? Do you want to play a game with me? I love you, Puka." And then, like, your mom in the background is just like, "Will you clean your goddamn room?" And it's like, "Will you clean your goddamn room?" Like, it's, so it doesn't, you don't get to pick what it records. And then other times it might just be like, "I love you." Like, it can be super sweet or it can be nasty. And so it's like the Tickle Me Elmo craze for this toy. Like, people are losing it over this weird thing. So I think this is one of the stronger installments in this like anthology series. It does have a sequel called Puka Kills.
Oh boy.
So if you really want to watch a follow-up, you can. I think the first one is the stronger of the two, but I think Jason Blum is like a producer on this too.
Oh,
so it
okay.
has like some Blumhouse vibes to it. But that's on Hulu. That's the Into the Dark anthology series is on Hulu. I wanted to talk about Silent Night from 2021.
Also a newer movie that I did not realize came out until like this year.
Yeah, it stars Keira Knightley and Matthew Good. It also has
both people I enjoy watching in movies.
It also has Roman Griffin Davies, who is he's the young actor who was in Jojo Rabbit, the Taika Waititi movie.
Yeah.
Annabelle Wallis, Lily Rose Depp, and Lucy Punch, who I love her and everything. She was like one of the stepsisters in Into the Woods, I think, and she was like also a stepsister in Ella Enchanted.
Okay.
She's Esme in the Series of Unfortunate Events Netflix series.
Oh, okay.
So she kind of ends up playing these kind of like bitchy bad guys. But the premise of this story is that Nell and Simon and their 3 sons are getting ready to welcome like their old school friends and their families for a Christmas gathering at their like huge country estate.
Must be nice.
Very English. And everything's perfect except for one thing. Everyone's going to die. So that's all you know going into it. It starts off as just kind of like a weird comedy of manners type situation. Like you can tell that these people were friends at one time, but they've grown apart as adults. And like there are the cliques within the group where it's like, well, we never really liked her. We were only friends with her because you liked her. And like you start picking up on these subtle hints that there is like something else going on that is not being directly stated. And then once you realize what is actually happening, it is horrific. And it takes on this entirely different tone. And the ending has a twist that then, with what you've just seen, you have to kind of just sit with it for a little bit afterwards. It's definitely a psychological horror.
Oh.
I think you might have a harder time with it now than you would have in prior years.
Okay.
But it is well worth a watch. Has very strong like Christmas family vibes and like bickering family vibes. And just like a lot of like beautiful English countryside and accents in it. And then to wrap up,
is Matthew Good a good character in it? Because he in horror movies is very hit and miss of like, I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy.
He and Keira Knightley are the married couple who are hosting everybody.
Like,
so
he's just attractive no matter what.
Yeah, he's like a very good dad. So
okay.
And I just want to wrap up with 2 TV episodes.
Okay.
That are Christmas horror. So the first one is an episode of The X-Files.
Okay.
It's from season 6, episode 6, How the Ghost Stole Christmas. So this is from 1998.
Oh.
And on Christmas Eve, Mulder and Scully stake out a house that's supposedly haunted by the ghosts of 2 lovers who killed each other in a lovers' pact 81 years before. And inside, they find 2 ghosts who are more than willing to give insight into the relationship and personalities of Mulder and Scully.
Oh.
And are essentially trying to get them to kill each other. And they are like trapped inside the house. Like it starts with like Mulder telling her this ghost story, and she's Scully, so she doesn't buy it.
Right.
And as typical Mulder, he's like, okay, well, Merry Christmas. And he goes inside. And then she's like, I can't, like, where are my keys? I'm locked out of my car. Did he take them? Like, this is typically him. So she goes inside to yell at him. And the door slams shut and they can't get out.
Oh, no.
And then they're in this like creepy haunted mansion-esque building. There's supposed to be like a huge snowstorm that night. Lily Tomlin and Ed Asner are the ghosts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there is like a death becomes her like, and I can see right through you moment that I love. There's a beautiful library in this house, so like that feels worth mentioning on this episode. And it is a standalone episode, so like, you don't have to watch really any of the other X-Files episodes to enjoy it. Like you just have to know that they are FBI agents and that they're partners and work together regularly. Like that's all you need to know going into it.
Mulder spooky and Scully
Mulder very much believes, and Scully is a skeptic.
Yep.
That's it. Now you can go watch it. That is also streaming on Hulu. And then the other one, I just rewatched it because I just started a rewatch of Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
And it is season 1 of the like newer Doctor Who, so like 2005.
Okay.
This is Eccleston Doctor.
My favorite Doctor.
So season 1, episode 3, The Unquiet Dead.
Yes.
And this is, do you remember this one?
I think I do. Is it Are You My Mummy?
No.
No. Okay.
Also a really good one.
Also spooky.
Yes. So this is Rose takes her first trip back in time,
Oh.
and they go back to 1869 Cardiff.
Oh, yes. Now I remember.
And they
this
go
one.
to a reading from Charles Dickens. But in the middle of the performance, a zombie-like creature interrupts the performance, and there's a ghostly apparition. Rose is kidnapped and taken to the home of an undertaker where alien creatures are living in the gas lighting system and taking possession of the dead. Rose manages to get information from Gwyneth, the parlor maid, and that points to her as the central point of contact for the alien being. So it is like essentially Charles Dickens with Christmas zombies.
Yes.
And then at the end, it is heavily implied that he writes a Christmas carol based on this experience.
Yes, and I think Christopher Eccleston ends up like or like a Happy Christmas for everyone or something like very Charles Dickens-esque.
Yeah, like the doctor's a huge Charles Dickens fan, and he's like, "What is a fan? What do you mean? You are an implement used to cool yourself?" But yeah, that's a fun Christmas time. They always have great Christmas specials on there, but that is like a very good like Christmas horror episode of Doctor Who because it's very zombie, spooky, like Victorian era.
I was gonna say a lot of like that first season had a lot of like spooky kind of.
The first episode is like the creepy murder mannequins.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of spooky, and then like once David Tennant, which don't get me wrong, love David Tennant too as the Doctor. There's like way more. There's the tragic, devastating ones, and then there's like, let's play Mr. Blue Sky. It's fine.
Yeah, I think 11, Matt Smith, is like my favorite of the current Doctor. Like, I love Christopher Eccleston's because he's my first Doctor. That's when I was introduced to the series. But I too use humor as a coping mechanism for trauma. So like the fact that he's so childlike and so goofy and weird coming straight off of like David Tennant's traumatic regeneration, I'm just like, yep, this is me. So I want to catch up because there's all this hubbub shenanigans right now about the newest episode, and everybody's up in arms about it because they suck. And so I was like, well, I'll do a little catch up. That's my
a little catch up.
They're shorter seasons than like a American TV.
All right.
So I'm just gonna. That's my month that I have off from school after this week. I just gotta truck it through. And then I can just watch some Doctor Who.
I mean, I wish I could get back into it. I don't have time ever to watch anything.
Well, that's why I have to watch everything in this month because this is the only time I have any time to do anything, and then I don't have a life again.
Fair enough. So, I just want to say thank you again for listening to all of our movies. There's definitely ones we did not touch. And that's because this is already 2 hours long. So, ooh, my tummy's grumbling. Sorry if you have to edit that out.
It probably didn't even show up on there.
So, if there's movies that you want us to mention next year, let us know. Or if there's movies that you're like, yes, that was a great Christmas movie. Or like, Beth, why did you mention elves? Ew. Let us know. Feel free to share with us on social media, or you know what? I haven't checked our Gmail, so I don't know if anybody actually
I don't even know
us.
I don't know if that episode is aired when we like had our little existential moment about email. If you haven't realized this yet, we record in advance, and sometimes we air episodes in a different order than we recorded them.
Yep. Sorry, guys. That's just how life happens, but.
That's what happens when Britta has one day off, and that's when we record.
Yeah. So, yeah. If you want to contact us, let us know. Feel free to go on our social media. And we are on Instagram, Lake Erie Library, and we're also on Facebook. You can just search Lake Erie Library and we should come up. And we are now where all the podcasts are available. And we are still working on other social media things. We keep teasing TikTok. But
I don't see it happening until like maybe next summer. Because again, I don't have time. I'm never home.
That's
so
fair.
I'm usually frantically editing episodes at like 11 p.m. to have them go live at midnight on a Saturday night. So,
and it gives me time to mentally prepare. So for all the fun interactions we'll have. But yeah, if you feel free to check us out. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season. Hopefully you get to watch some spooky horror movies that are holiday-esque. Hopefully you are not burnt out by now on just all the holiday madness. And hopefully you've been able to eat your fair share of Christmas or other holiday treats. I know I have some baking in my future, so that's going to be great. We'll check in with me next week and see how things are going. I for sure feel like my Lois Griffin stage is coming on soon.
Yeah.
Hasn't as of this recording, but it's going to happen this month. It just hasn't happened yet.
I'm going to climb back up my mountain of trash to Mount Crumpet, where everybody dumps their garbage, and stay up there. Also, when I was watching Gremlins recently, my cat was way too interested into it for like I'm uncomfortable with how interested he was. Like I have long suspected that he is an alien creature, but I think he might be like some new age version of like a mogwai, and he's just like, yes, I should get wet and eat after midnight and then murder people, but
I'm coming home.
Yeah, that'll be he's my max. I don't think he'd let me put a stick antler on him, but we'll see.
So yeah, feel free to check us out on any of our social media.
Thanks to our spooky sponsor.
Yes. Happy holiday season to you. And yeah, for everybody else, stay spooky, friends.